Overnight, Iranian lawmakers burned a U.S. flag in their Iranian parliament, vowing to increase spending on its ballistic missile program, which they've been working on for years, which is all, of course, a direct response to President Trump's announcement pulling out of the nuke deal yesterday.
National Security Advisor John Bolton joins us live from the White House with his reaction. Good morning to you. Congratulations on your new post. So, aside from giving them $150 billion, aside from them burning the American flag, yelling death to America, why was this decision so important?
Well, look, it's no surprise Iran doesn't want to change anything in the existing Iran nuclear deal. Why should they? They got a wonderful deal from their perspective. In fact, their only regret, I think, is they didn't ask Obama and Kerry for more, because they probably would have gotten it. That's why the president focused on why the deal was fundamentally flawed in his remarks yesterday. And because of that, it was not in America's strategic interest to enter the deal, and it was not in our strategic interest to stay in the deal. So we're out of it. We're going to reimpose sanctions to the maximum extent possible. We're going to work with our European allies. We're going to go after other objectionable aspects of Iran's behavior. We're going to try and reduce this threat in the region and around the world.
Well, sir, if you heard, you probably saw some of the reaction from Democrats who think a little bit differently about what the deal used to represent and what this move means now. Here's what a few Democrats said yesterday. We're going to put it up on our screen. Barack Obama, former president, said it risks eroding America's credibility. Nancy Pelosi said it endangers global security and defies comprehension. And, of course, John Kerry, who was going behind this administration's back and talking to other countries, says it breaks America's word. A lot of them said it makes a nuclear Iran more likely. What do you say to these critics?
I think they're 180 degrees wrong. I think this deal was giving Iran cover to get to the objective it's been pursuing for decades, which is deliverable nuclear weapons. This deal was badly negotiated. It was conceived with a wrong view of its consequences for the United States and Iran. I mean, really, it rested on the notion that if we could just resolve the nuclear problem, Iran's behavior would change for the better. Exactly the opposite has taken place. Iran's behavior has gotten worse. It's been more belligerent, more supportive of terrorism, as we can see from what they're doing right now in Iraq and Syria.
Well, right now, we have heard, and we're not going to ask you to comment on it because I know you don't want to get in front of the president, but Mike Pompeo is in North Korea. And it is expected he's going to be traveling back very shortly. Could have some surprises there. But, sir, a number of Democrats have said the message to North Korea is you can't trust the United States. We had a deal with Iran, and they can't trust us, and neither should the North Koreans. What's your message to the Democrats who are saying that?
Well, they're completely wrong. We had a rotten deal with Iran, and just as George W. Bush withdrew from the 1972 ABM treaty because it was not in America's strategic interest, that's what the president has done here. I think it sends a very important message to North Korea that we're not in these negotiations with them just to get a deal. We're going to get the right deal. And with respect to North Korea, we're going to ask that they do what they agreed to do over 25 years ago, which is not only not pursue nuclear weapons, but give up uranium enrichment and plutonium reprocessing, the back end and the front end of the nuclear fuel cycle. That was the European position with respect to Iran back in the day, and that's what we ought to take a look at.
Sends a strong message to these rogue nations. Now, will the sanctions work even if we don't get participation from our European allies?
Well, the sanctions take effect immediately, so there's no new business allowed under the terms that are prescribed. For existing contracts, there are wind-down provisions that come into effect, and the Treasury Department and others will be laying those out in more detail. But obviously, our sanctions have enormous effect on Europe already. Licenses of American technology. If American companies can't use those licenses to sell to Iran, neither is anybody else. So we're going to be talking to the Europeans. In fact, when I leave here, I'm going to be doing a video conference with my counterparts from Britain, France, and Germany to work forward on the next steps, looking at some of the ideas President Macron of France has been talking about. We have a lot to do because we share the common objective. We don't want Iran with nuclear weapons.
Sir, as the newly minted National Security Advisor, you have a front row seat to a very historic week, from the scrapping of the Iran deal to the prospects of a sit-down in North Korea, and then the moving of the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. What is it about, if you've watched this president, what is the Trump doctrine? What is it about this approach that has created these opportunities and changes?
Well, I think the president follows the advice of Harry Truman and Dean Acheson that he negotiates from positions of strength and not positions of weakness. He believes in peace through strength. When he says something, he carries through on it. And I think that's where the real credibility comes from, not from executing deals that don't accomplish what they're designed to. So I think that's one reason he's very optimistic, looking forward to the meeting with Kim Jong-un.
And Mr. Bolton, what do you say to Democrats who are upset that the president pulled the plug on this, even though a number of them, including Chuck Schumer, back a couple of years ago, voted against Barack Obama's Iran nuke pact?
Right. They were right the first time. This deal was a mistake when it was originally agreed to, and it hasn't aged well.
There you go. All right. John Bolton joining us today on a very busy day at the White House. Sir, thank you very much.
Thanks, sir. Appreciate your time.
Glad to be with you.
Good to have you.
A city councilwoman under fire for refusing to say the Pledge of Allegiance. And this morning, she's not backing down. You're going to hear from her next.
Who does she pledge allegiance to then? I wonder.
Good question.
And while you were sleeping, another California city voting to fight back against the state's